set this down. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not really a tomahawk man.
It looks like
I'm a
you've
nice
already
guy.
did scout.
Does anybody need a haircut?
Actually, this is not Sue. I have so many elder friends that are from different tribes, and they constantly are presenting me with little tidbits of their culture to bring around and make sure folks like you get to see it. This, of course, it was is a style from the 1800s. Your organization is about your family members and ancestors that were part of the American Revolution. You know, in those days, our Sioux people, the Lakota, were minding our own business 2,000 miles away from there, and virtually didn't know what was going on. But a few did, and the ones that did, honest to goodness, were amused at the American Revolution, not because that there was a war going on, but because in hopes that both sides would kill each other, give up, and go home. They kind of hoped that, and of course, you know, that didn't happen. But I'll put it this way, this kind of scares me. I don't know. A real Indian tomahawk is not made out of metal.
Yeah.
You know, they got this from the settlers. And real Indian tomahawks are not meant to cut wood. They're not meant to get used as a tool. It's a piece of wood with a stone attached to it. It's for hitting other human beings. That's the only purpose.
How many notches on that?
God only knows. I got it from the Mohawk, and they're really, really bad.
Yeah.
This would be their other version, by the way. This is their. But both of these came from the same source. This is. I guess it's a replica, but they used to make. We call this acoustic, but it's actually kind of a tomahawk, and it would be made out of a rifle stock that they took from somebody. Obviously, that's not a rifle stock, but it's in the shape of one. Those two artifacts came together. But my people are the Sioux, and you saw me sitting up here today, and I was wearing a T-shirt, and it's a symbol on the front. Now, my mother was from the Standing Rock Sioux tribe on the border North and South Dakota, and that's their emblem. And it's on their flag, it's on their seal, and all their little documents that go to the U.S. federal government have that on it. And the reason that I'm showing you a T-shirt as part of the program is Miss Vicki and I travel all over America, and one of the favorite things we do wherever there's an Indian community is go to their flea market or their outdoor trade area. And we're in Albuquerque, which, by the way, is in New Mexico, far, far, far from North Dakota. Okay, we're walking through the flea market, looking at all the Indian things that they had there, and we're wearing that T-shirt, and we came up to a table with a guy that had all tools and one basket. So we walk over to the basket, and we're looking at this basket, and it's really, really, really old, really old. It's like almost 200 years old.
Wow.
But I asked the guy how much he wanted for it. He said $2. And Vicky goes, "What do you want that old basket?" And I went, "That's the Lakota Star. This is a 200-year-old Sioux basket. $2.
Wow.
$2.
Was it really?
Um, 3 or 4 zeros.
3 or 4 ones?
Zeros.
Okay.
It really should be in the museum.
And it will. We just brought it back, and it's the first thing on my mind when I left. And these triangles on the outside here, these are an imitation of a lodge. A lodge is you call a teepee.
Yeah.
And this was some sort of
It was either that or a tree, and I wasn't sure which.
seed basket, which is kind of strange because we don't farm. So something that they gathered when in there.
Is it made out of pine needles?
No, it's made out of some sort of straw. There are very few pine needles in South North Dakota. Very few trees
Yeah.
in South North Dakota.
I'll triple your money. I gave you $6 for it.
There you go. You notice what I'm wearing. I don't wear this all the time. And I wore this. You're never probably going to see one ever again. You've probably not ever seen one before. This is what's called a ghost dance regalia. The whole reason that there are Indians in movies was because of that conflict with the Lakota and the army in the 1800s. that was spawned by the railroad being built across the United States. I'm surprised that Ben Saxon's not here today.
He is ill.
Okay, well, God bless, I'll have to contact him. He was my teacher in school many years ago.
Yes, he
Long
was
time
telling
ago.
me that the last
And
time.
one of the things that he makes sure that the students know is a part of American history called Western Expansion or Manifest Destiny. And that started with the railroad being built and them coming in contact with the Sioux, the Lakota, and that's putting a stop to it. This is my wife, Miss Vicky, and she's a traditional Native American woman. She's not Sioux, she's Creek and Cherokee, but she married me, so she's kind of stuck helping me. And what she's doing is putting feathers on my regalia. Has anyone here worked for the federal government by any chance?
No, not me. Well, it's in the Air Force.
Okay, that's good. I appreciate being a veteran. I mean, like the government, like the Department of the Interior. The reason why, to start with, my clothes are not have feathers on them. I have a federal law that says that eagle feathers, possession of eagle feathers, will put you in jail for 10 years.
Wow.
They were enforcing it like crazy, and then suddenly, because as part of the Religious Freedom Act, Native Americans were
But
allowed.
you didn't kill the eagle to get it.
I don't know where these came from. I didn't kill the eagle. I didn't get them or present it. They do molt every year, but we do kill eagles. That's how you get them.
Just tell them they're big in Taiwan.
We've all tried that until recently. They were really hard on us, and then they put out a document from the government that said even though it's against the law, we have a conflict of laws. So what we're going to do is, the law's going to stay on the books, but we're not going to enforce it or harass you about your feathers if you have a tribal enrollment card. And in just in case anybody is my letter from our government attorney that says they're okay. You can have them. Yeah, I'm doing this for a reason
You don't
because
trust a white man enough to believe that, do you?
right after they told us they weren't going to prosecute, they started putting people in prison.
That's what I'm saying.
So we have to be very careful. The regalia or outfit that I'm wearing is from the end of the 1800s, early 1900s. Part of Manifest Destiny, and all those battles against the Sioux were about the ghost dance. If you had to compare it to something, I would say that I compare it to communion in the Catholic Church. It doesn't affect government, it doesn't affect policy, it doesn't affect trade, it affects us practicing our religion. However, somebody in the government decided that because we were praying to God, hoping to have our ancestors come back and speak to us and help us because we were having a hard time, that we were actually going to do it. They were afraid that we were actually going to turn the earth around, remove all of the American settlers and pioneers. They actually believed that those prayers were going to be listened to for guilt or whatever. So they made us doing the ghost dance against the law. Like if you're a Catholic, you're no longer allowed to go to church. And if you do go to church, you're not allowed to have Holy Communion. You know how upset that would make you. And it made us upset. And so we started practicing it in secret. You will remember an incident in American history. Everybody hears the Wounded Knee, where the Indians were all gunned down in the snow there. Wasn't any warriors in that group, by the way. An easy description of that's who was left after all the warriors had to flee after that Little Bighorn incident. It was old men and kids and retarded, deficient ones that had to stay back with the women. And they were on their way to meet another group to ghost dance. They were starving and in the snow, and it ended up getting them killed. All about the ghost dance. This is the regalia. On my reservation in North and South Dakota, I can go to prison for wearing this shirt. Can you imagine such a thing? We have civil rights icons fight for civil rights that only end up being for African American rights. Up until the middle 1960s, Indians were still considered livestock.
Excuse me?
Livestock by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the 60s. They were still considered wards of the state as livestock, the same as if the government owned a herd of cattle or a squalor of pigs. And so we raised our eyebrow at civil rights things. I brought a number of things with me. All of the things that they're doing to the Indians, have done to the Indians, is a real negative thing, and it's obvious and true, but I'm not here for that. I'm here to bring you some things you can't get anywhere else. I didn't go to school for Indian things. Nobody goes to school for Native American culture. If they say they do, they're learning that teepee, wigwam, birch bark canoe thing you learned in elementary school, and that's what they're learning. You see with me, I've brought, there's three what we call staffs. One of them there in the back is devoid of feathers. I'm only allowed so many eagle feathers, and that's what goes on that. So when I don't have them on my ghost dance regalia, they're hanging on that little Bo Peep hook staff. That's not Sioux. I travel around. I befriended a very important elder of the Cherokee Nation in Cherokee, North Carolina, Earl Yonah Taylor. And he was the head of the only Cherokee veterans organization called the All Nations Warrior Society. And that was the eagle staff for them. So in essence, that was the flag of the whole Cherokee Nation. Yonah passed away. By the way, he was an honored Vietnam veteran. Great big 6'5" Cherokee guy. And when he died, his wife told me, "Come to our house, please. You got to come get all Yonah's things." I'm like, "Why do I got to come get Yonah's things? I'm not even Cherokee." She says, "Because he loves you and he knows that it'll be taken care of." The tribe, in all its modern, we got Harris Casino and we don't care about Indian things anymore, we're going to throw the eagle staff of the Cherokee Nation in the dumpster. All his historical family items in the dumpster, so that they could clean out his house and give it to somebody else. The tribal housing, that's the way that works. So I took it with me, I brought it with me. When I bring it out, you got one drop of Cherokee blood, that staff should sing to you. That honors all veterans, but Cherokee veterans especially. Next to it is that one with the horns on it. Probably never seen one of those. Looks kind of funny, doesn't it? That's the Ghost Dance leader staff.
I was gonna say, it looked like it might be.
I led a ghost dance in North Dakota 10 years ago. And the one that stands in the middle says the prayers, calls the songs for them, and starts the dance as that. And it was made just for that, and it's polished buffalo horns and elk hide. We really don't get much buffalo hide anymore, as you might remember from American history. They slaughtered all the buffalo so we wouldn't have anything to eat. Worked. You can get buffalo meat now, and you can get the hides, but I'm not paying $1,700 for a hide. It just doesn't sound like what we should be doing. These clothes are not made out of hide. Mostly it's made out of canvas muslin that they used to make tents out of, and we got little bits of hide that are used to make the fringe. And it's painted. That's the way that they were decorated in the days. The moccasins on my feet, that's the most expensive thing. If you had to buy those now, it's like $400. Because they're entirely beaded on the entire top, hand done by an Indian lady, and they're custom made to my feet. I'll make it where everybody can see everything around the room. I only wear them for certain things. I don't want to wear out the soles so they cut. They're made out of elk hide. That's the animal we resorted to for hides. I brought musical instruments because my career in life has been to play music. I am here on Earth because of racial prejudice against Indians. It's a positive swing to it. My father was not an Indian. My father was 100% Polish-American steel mill worker from Chicago. Got drafted for World War II, joined the Marines instead. I don't know what he was thinking. There's some story behind it, I'm sure. He could have went in the Air Corps or anything else and rather avoided getting put in front with the Japanese, but he didn't. And he ended up, he's Polish, so, you know, one of the cultural things of Polish is the Marines only tolerate so much of that. He got in trouble. He got punished because my dad's Polish people, and in general in those days, they weren't racially prejudiced. They hated everybody who wasn't Polish. Heck, you were calling our Martian, no jak się masz. Out. They thought they were going to put the screws to him. They made him work with the brown people in his job. He was a radio repair guy. You know, World War II radios was a whole different deal. Field radio was this big, it weighed like 40 pounds. Anyway, field radio repairman. He attached him to some brown people. Those brown people ended up being the Navajo code talkers.
Oh my goodness.
He was attached to the 4th Division Raiders, Navajo code talkers. Was he a code talker? No, but he fixed their radios, just in case you didn't know. Bullets stop radios from working. And in the field, if a radio goes down, no code, no radio. So it was his job. So he got to know these brown people. Yeah, he's the one who introduced him to beer. Another bad move. Native Americans have an enzyme in their body different from Europeans that doesn't allow us to break down alcohol. It does, but it takes a whole lot longer, so we get drunk really fast with a little bit of alcohol. Hence the drunk Indian thing. Easy to control Indians with just a little bit of booze. Anyway.
But the code talkers, that went through into Korea, didn't it?
Went into Vietnam.
Did it go into Vietnam?
The code was declassified until 1968. I still, believe it or not, I still work with some Navajo code talkers who are still alive. There's a few of them.
Yes.
And they're starting to get Alzheimer's, which to all of us will be devastating. To America, it's a blessing because that allows them to remember every moment of World War II, but they can't remember breakfast. They remembered every code they ever sent, every detail, every person's name, everywhere they were, what it looked like, what it smelled like, and they're sharing it.
Well, there was a fellow that just died recently, and he was like 102 or something like that.
I'm sure friend Dave.
That was a code talker.
Chester Nez, and two of them that I traveled around with, Samuel Tom Holliday, and three of them, Herb Peaches, and Charles Nelson. Don't sound like Indian names, do they? Indians had to take regular names to get paid by the government. Okay, they are still going around representing the Navajo code talkers and talking. I got to impress my wife once in my life, just once.
Always. He always impresses me.
We were in Albuquerque in the Old Town at the big giant outdoor fair. It was the 300th anniversary of Old Town, and the Navajo code talkers, 4 of them, were set up. They just written a book together, and they were selling the book and signing the book, and it was an event. And we walked up there, and I said, "Vicki, look, there's code talkers, and they all called me by name.
Oh, how wonderful.
I was like, "Oh, code talker know who you are?" They knew my father. They remembered my father, and it started. I traveled all over. I was in Alaska at a Native American powwow, and they were honoring the code talkers, and they flew some up there for this 4th of July celebration in Fairbanks. And I had a book with all of my dad's photos from World War II. And one of the code talkers walks up and he's flipping the pages, and he goes, "Crazy Danny." And I said, "Yeah, my dad's name's Daniel." He goes, "Crazy Danny." That's me next to him in the picture of this young Indian guy. Wow. So I got to talking to them, and all of a sudden, I'm one of the family, and those are Indian things, but those are not Sioux things.
How did you become a Sioux?
Why do you say that?
Because you told about your Polish side.
Yes, the other side.
Okay, the reason that I'm here, that I'm on this earth, was my father befriended the Navajos to the point where he thought they were okay. He came home and met an Indian woman and married her. The family was in uproar. They raised Cain. They ran him out of South Side Chicago, if you can imagine that.
Yeah.
He had to move as far for Chicago as he could get where he come Ocala, Florida in 1952 to get away from it. And that's why we're here, and that's how come I can stand before you today, because he married an Indian woman and had to move away. I met my Uncle Ted again. Hadn't seen him since the 60s. Just a few years ago, he was 97 years old. Hadn't seen him since I walked through the door. What's the first thing Uncle Ted says? Davy, your mother was native, you know that, right? Like he would give me some family secret that was going to wreck my world. Yeah, Uncle Ted, I know she was native. And then he softened up, and you know, the older you get, he says, I know you do things to honor your father. What do you do with your music to honor your mother? old scale Polish man to say that, I'm thinking, the world is changing. But I record CDs. I have a large number of them, and I present him with some Native American music. And I brought these, a lot of Native instruments with me to show you, let your ears take in firsthand what the sounds are of Native American people. I did not get to heat this drum head, so it's going to be a little flat. One of the reasons Florida Indians never use drums is because it's impossible to keep a drum head tight in this humidity.
Oh, really?
Nowadays, we use them when you take a hairdryer and cook it till it rounds.
Really?
Yeah.
How interesting.
But I'm going to do that since this is kind of flat. I'm going to sing you we sing each other's songs. Some of the ones from the Sioux are either church songs or they're being sung by a young man who squeaks so high I couldn't do it. But I'm going to sing you songs that we sing a lot. We get them from each other, the neighboring tribes. This song is called the Good Song. The words in our language just mean we're singing the good song. But the reason they're singing the good song is it's a welcome home song for the soldiers. All our songs aren't from the 14, 15, 16, 1700s. They're right up until today because there are still lots of Indians. This is a World War II welcome home song, which, by the way, as far as I know, at the time, the Indians were the only ones singing welcome home songs. You can imagine that.
Yeah.
Everybody had going to war songs, but nobody had welcome home. Still like that. At any rate, here's a good song. We're singing the good song, the men are coming, we're singing the good song.
Okay.
Now, what are your drumsticks made out of?
Actually, these Indians are real resourceful. You know those reflectors that you stick at the end of your driveway with a little
Yeah, right, yeah. That's what that is.
Right, we once had ones that are made out of wood. Don't do that anymore. That's ridiculously ineffective, and it breaks.
Yeah.
Fishing poles are good. If we opened up these are Washichu. That means made by white people. I use
It looks
them.
like it's like some type of rawhide.
It is. There's hides on there, and God knows what they are. And it's probably duct tape wrapped underneath there. But Indian ones, these two are Indian. fishing pole, but I know it's underneath on Indian ones. Dirty socks and duct tape.
Dirty socks and duct tape, okay.
That's what they use, and works the best, lasts long, and nobody minds it's missing. I got these from Earl Taylor from that Eagle staff back there. This one in the front is my family staff. You'll notice it's a bit over decorated with U.S. military stuff. That's okay. But it was a USO entertainer, and I travel around the country. I do Native American spiritual ceremonies for the Marines, the Army, a whole lot for the Navy, and a couple for the. I got to go to MacDill to do a program for both the Air Force and whoever those spooks are. They're CIA. Do a program for them coming up. I mean, both sides of this thing are just. It started off just being my family's, and my family had a lot of military emblems and insignias, and then everywhere I went, I discovered there were veterans with no family who wanted to be remembered, and they would bring me their patches and pins. And I am not worthy of all of the things that I get. I've gotten silver stars, I've gotten bronze stars, I've gotten Navy Cross. You see one of those, it's not on a seal, somebody died? Yeah. Navy SEAL, Tritons, all kinds of things, because America's really good about forgetting their defenders. And they know that I bring this everywhere. They were talking about that 9/11 memorial. That's going to be, there's no good feelings are going to come out of that when that comes here. It's still so fresh on us. I had a son in boot camp on 9/11, and he went directly to the field of operations there in the Marines and got himself killed in action. So when y'all said that 9/11 thing, is, there's just no escaping that feeling. But his dog tags in here. That social studies fair, I was a judge at that too. I went there, and there was a young man who had a display of the flag raisers pushing up the flag on Iwo Jima. My dad was not among them, but he was there close enough to see it close up firsthand. And I had to leave. I could only judge so many that I had to get to work. And I was, in my pocket jingling was his round dog tag that he had on Iwo Jima. And I wanted so bad to go over there and clink that on the table on the kid's display and show him and say, touch that. That was there. But I couldn't. And Native Americans have been the greatest number of those volunteering for combat duty in every single conflict, including the American Revolution, that have ever been fought in America. Even the Indian Wars had Indians on the other side. I teach an entire program on the Civil War and Native Americans. That will shock you if we ever get an opportunity. Highlights being Indians are the ones who caused it. Your history book pages are turning now, aren't they? Mine? They caused it because they were the plantation owners, not the white people. They had the slaves. Very few white people had plantations, not in the history books. It was all Cherokee Indians. So that removal business was when it switched to white people. So guess which side the Indians fought for?
The white side, they were all Confederates.
Because they were fighting to get their plantations back. At any rate, one of the things that's most confused about my people all throughout history is this. No jokes, please. This is not a funny thing. This we call a chanupa. History books call this a peace pipe. It's not. An army officer has decided to call it a peace pipe. It's the most sacred thing that the Sioux or any of the Plains Indians have. Its entire purpose is to create a little bit of smoke to carry our prayers to God. Nothing is ever put in there that has ever intoxicated anyone, not in this kind of pipe. That's something else altogether. And saw some movies where they were implying that, you know what, a couple $100 million worth of lawsuits later. Chanupa. It was used at all meetings with the chiefs and the government because one reason, it's a ceremony that we do as part of our church. Nothing, we don't breathe anything out of there. They pull smoke through it. What's put in it is kinnikinnick, and it's not tobacco and it's not drugs. It's something that smells good. Matter of fact, if you breathe it in, it'll make you sick. But you pull smoke through and make the smoke come out to carry your prayers. They use this at meetings with the government because to us it's so sacred that if you're holding it in your hand and you lie, we know that God will kill you with a lightning bolt immediately. So we encouraged the generals and the government agents to smoke with us, thinking that this great Indian lie detector would work. Little did we know they were already smoking tobacco from Europe, and it didn't bother them a bit. It was just a trivial formality. And one of the reasons for several of the big conflicts was them disrespecting this in the meeting. And the chiefs left, and they got bad. The entire reason that the Sioux stopped the railroad back in the days when America was young and expanding, I had a story from a grandfather whose grandfather told it to him of a hunting party out on the plains, somewhere in the northern plains, at the edge of South Dakota. And they ran up on the first railroad tracks. They're on horseback. And they rode up there, and they're looking at these things, big giant silver snakes on the ground, and riding up there looking, and Indian horses, up until recent years really, weren't shod, no horseshoes. So when one of the leader's horses went up there, stepped on a rail and split its hoof and had to be destroyed, that pissed off the Sioux. It really made that, because they were all about, their life was about that horse. So they left and they went back, and the Sioux are like fire ants. If you get one of them mad, they go back in there and get the rest of them stirred up, and then really bad things happen. Now, other ants don't know what made this one mad. All they know is he's mad, we're getting mad with him. So they rose up, and they decided they were going to put a stop to whatever that was that lamed that horse. That must be evil from the white people. So they put a stop to building it, to the people building it, to the people bringing stuff for the people to build it, to anyone who came along with that railroad had to be killed and stopped, and they were for.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Come on in if you want to come in, darling. Almost 9 or 10 years they had the railroad stopped before the government overwhelmed them, and it's all because one Sioux brave with a whole lot of ego and a big head got embarrassed, and that thing lamed his horse. Most of the things with us are common sense that were completely overlooked by early Americans and settlers. This thing is made out of a certain kind of stone. It's made out of pipestone, catlinite they call it. Indians sell more of these than anybody else. You know, that casino thing, we're against gambling, right?
When was the last time that got smoked?
Maybe 6 months ago. We should probably smoke it more, but I just got this feeling that no matter what you draw in your lungs with smoke on it, it'll hurt you. So only do it come ceremony time. There's old guys who do the pipe every day and other things.
You mentioned lightning a while ago, being struck by lightning. How did that affect the Indians? That was kind of an awesome thing for them, wasn't it?
Lightning? Okay, Wakinya, the Sioux have the great firebird. Wakinya is lightning. And whenever lightning struck, it was as part of one of three things. It was Wakinya in action, or it is a spiritual message having to do with a spiritual condition called being heyoka. Heyokas are the spiritual condition of being contrary. I mean, like backwards. They say they're hot when they're cold. They say goodbye instead of hello. And it's...
Well, there's a natural march bridge in Wyoming, and as the lore goes, that the settlers were there and there was a thunderstorm and the Indians were coming and they got under this arch and the lightning wouldn't hit them, and so the Indians, that to them that is sacred ground now because it didn't kill the settlers.
Could be. There's
Well, that's the lore.
there's a story. Everything that I'm telling you
That's
is
a
word
story.
of mouth. That's word of mouth. Who am I to say it's wrong? I wasn't there. Even no matter how crazy it sounds, they were describing it in the way they knew how to describe it. And those words exactly are passed down. A lot of things like that. I say we say worship, but we don't. The buffalo. Boy, oh boy. Yeah, there's some pieces falling off. It's just a skeleton. You wouldn't believe how expensive it is to get an old bony head of buffalo. This was everything that there was to the Sioux. Their hides were our homes. Their bones and teeth were our weapons and tools. The meat was everything. Every little scrap of that was used as best we could preserve it. And I have to dispel a rumor. Indians being the keepers of the environment, not so. Humans have always used the environment to their best advantage. We were nomadic, we moved. We would wreck an area and then leave. That's what Indians did. So them acting like we're the great environmental, oh, everything was great, we loved one another, there was no wars.
Constantly fall.
Hippie talk. Hippie talk. Only people Indians hate worse than white people is each other. Tribes hate each other.
And they don't know why.
It's like the Serbians and Croatians. You put two in the room, they don't know each other, but they know they hate each other. That's just as part of humanity. We're not different. And there's a certain group of Americans we run into, and they're skin worshipers, and anybody who's Indian, they treat them like they're, and my saying is just because they're brown does not mean they wear a crown. We got criminals, conmen, and shysters too. And thieves and people and users, and just because it looks like somebody you saw in Dances with Wolves doesn't mean that's a good person. There's 9 million Indians, and you know that? You look up, oh, that's an Indian. I can either look like an Indian or not look like an Indian. When I'm with my people, I blend in. When I wear a ball cap and a t-shirt, I blend in with my too. This is not what I wear all the time. I'm wearing kind of a ornate belt. It usually would go with a ghost dance regalia. These are Dakota emblems, and it was gifted. There's no tribe that could really wear any regalia that's perfectly pure, or you would think it was boring. We kind of dress things up with things that we were given in a way. Speaking of both, we got to travel to Fargo, North Dakota here in June. That's time to go.
Definitely not in the winter.
One of our most hated enemy of the Sioux are the Ojibwe. I'm their best buddy. For some reason or other, yeah, it's ancient. Evidently, if you talk to our people, we were always in the Black Hills. Archaeologists have put the Lakota starting off in North Carolina. When another tribe, bigger and badder, ran them out of there to the Great Lakes. And there they stayed for a millennia. And then, in our words of our grandfathers, a great and powerful enemy drove us to the Black Hills. The great powerful enemy was 10 or 12 million Ojibwe moving south because both groups were following a message from God. The Ojibwe were coming south to find food on the water, which they found in wild rice in the Great Lakes. There they stayed. All the Ojibwe, Chippewa, they're all in there. And their sheer numbers drove the Sioux out of there to the Black Hills, which was so rugged, so formidable that they're the only people who could live there, so they adapted to it. This is Native American flute. All of the tribes claim it, however, it does come from the Ojibwe. This is a 6-hole flute. There's 2 kinds, a 6 and a 5. And I've never bought a flute in my life, but they tell me they're quite expensive. I have a dozen of them in the bag there. I play music and I play these. This comes from the Ojibwe. There's a legend about a young man courting a young lady, and them sitting under a tree and the wind blowing, and there's a hollow branch and a bird sitting on the branch. And the bird would hop from hole to hole, and the wind would blow and it'd make a flute sound, so they got the idea. That's not how we make them, by the way. We don't go looking for hollow trees. I'm sure that they got Craftsman and Hilti
Ford plant.
at the Ford plant, yeah, to help make these. You think I'm kidding? I'll tell you more about it. I'll play you a few notes on this. It's a Native American sound that if you ever watch any Native American movies, you're going to hear this.
Very good. Yeah.
Works on the same order as a recorder or the?
No, this is a minor pentatonic scale. I know that's a big bunch of words.
It's got a very good tone.
And it does. This is a real expensive one. There's professional Native American flute players that are famous, and one of them, Mary Youngblood.
Yes.
And this is her personal flute maker made this, and he presented it to me. Now, mind you, he's an Indian and I'm an Indian, and he told me, Dave, I want to give you this flute here, but I'm afraid. And I said, what you afraid of? He goes, I've seen all that stuff going in and out of your van, and this is going to end up matchwood. He said, I'll only give it to you if you get a case to put it in. So, yeah, I had to have a case made for it so that he would give me the flute. More Indian stuff. Oh, okay. I get more in trouble with this one than anything else. I'm the king of being unpopular on Martin Luther King Day. This is a piece of PVC pipe.
I was gonna say, look, that's.
Yeah, it's what it is. And I found it in a trash pile. I was stopped at a light in Indianapolis, Indiana. And there was a trash pile by the road, and pipes are all sticking out of it, you know. And I at the time lived in an old Indian house, which means constantly needs repair. So I get all the extra PVC because I knew mine was going to plug. And I threw it in the back, and I got home, and my neighbor was a flute maker. He made them and sold them, or tried to. And I gave him a piece of this, and I said, his name was Dave too. I said, Dave, can you make me a flute? And he takes this thing, and he's, oh no. I just have one question. I'm like, what? He goes, which end do you want me to put the flush handle on? I'm like, no, a flute. So he goes away, borrows $20 while he's there. Indian stuff. And a few days later, he comes back with this little guy, and let's all do the math. Found him in a trash pile next to a mobile home community. Skinny white trailer trash. At any rate, it's got a lovely little voice that sounds kind of like a bird.
Oh, it's over here. I was gonna say, I thought you.
It's a bad for a piece of pipe, huh? So you know what he started making for a living right after that.
I'm telling you about Amazing Grace.
Little melody I was playing, We're trying to play Amazing Grace. That's a wonderful song, isn't it? It's in all the hymnals. It's page 126 in the Southern Baptist hymnal. It's been translated into more languages than any other song in the entire world. If you look at it, it says who wrote the words, who wrote the music on that hymn. Wouldn't have been them when they got to heaven. It came from the Navajo Indians when the first settlers came to build colonies. And it's all a Native American spiritual song. It's very, very, very similar in some ways, I guess, to what it ended up being. Those men who claimed that there's some story about some slave ship and some
I
guy.
was just gonna say that,
That's
because that's all that I heard.
And here's the proof. In the Library of Congress, in an area where you can only view but not check out the documents, there's letters from a Catholic priest, Jamestown, who wrote his brother in England, who was also a priest, telling him of this wonderful melody he had just gotten from the Indians, and he wrote a music staff in the letter. Amazing Grace came from the Lakota Indians, documented. And somehow or another, even with that, the copyright office allowed them to, then their families receive all of the monies from that. Do we care that they got the money? No, we just care that they claimed something else that we invented or came up with, and it's disheartening.
It was supposed to have been from a slave ship, and the thing is that it can be played, one of the few songs that can be played on the black notes of the piano.
Minor pentatonic scale.
Yeah, right, that, again, yeah.
So you're saying the music came from the Indian,
The melody.
the melody,
Right.
the words came from the ship.
Yes, they did. All of the versions, there's about 5 different versions. And they all have 4 or 5 verses. So, who's the guy? I mean, but anyway, that's amazing. My father-in-law, Vicky's dad, shops at Goodwill. A lot. We were on the road somewhere. Were we in North Carolina? Were we in South
Yes,
Dakota?
North Carolina.
And he calls me up and says, "Hey, I found one of them beater things at the Goodwill. You want me to buy it?" Beater things. Them round things you hit when you sing. A drum? Yeah, a drum. I want $2.99 for it. $1.99 for it. I'm gonna Jew them down. He almost did. This is the drum. This little feather she's got in her hand is an eagle feather, and it was attached to. This is a Sundance drum, and really, really fine made one on top of it. But that's priceless to everybody else. About $600 worth of Sundance drum for $1.99. And so he bought it, and I was thrilled to have it when I had to lead the ghost dance. You'll notice some of the bird images are similar. The image for the ghost dance is the red-winged blackbird and the crow. Those are the images for the ghost dance. So I painted it up and used it. Miss Vicki wants me to sing you a song. I'm going to sing you a veteran song. We have 2 different kinds of songs. We have songs that honor God and songs that honor the warriors. You got those 2 things. You're taking care of your protectors and you're taking care of your God. You have everything you need. And this is there are no words to this one, but we sing this at grand entries when they bring all of the warriors and veterans in to honor them at the powwow. Well, hey, yeah, yeah.
you mentioned something about the 1960s. We were in Pendleton, Oregon, and at a museum there. I don't know the tribe name, but the Indian guide mentioned they were very happy that President Nixon did something good for the Indian tribes in America. Do you know what that was?
Yes, I do. It was, they gave them their lands. He signed the document. They had reservations, but they did not own them. And as a matter of fact, so it ties to my Navajo code talker, Samuel Tom Holliday, code talker from the 4th Marine Division. His son's named Nixon.
Oh, really?
His son's named Nixon because he was born the day that Nixon signed that paper for the Indians. All of the Indians were overjoyed. It was fabulous for them because it gave them sovereignty, nation sovereignty. So all these major tribes are actually countries within our country. And the government, to some extent, treats them like nations. Some of the chiefs act like world leaders. They barge into the White House and things when they're allowed. To a great extent, we're still considered insurgents, but we have our own country inside this nation. Very complicated. Very complicated. Wonderful. You see this? Eagle feather just fell.
They also mentioned that before the white men were allowed to buy land on reservations, and now the Indians are trying to buy it back and give it to tribe members.
Have and they do. As soon as they get monies from casino, by the way, they start doing that. It was a very important Indian thing. When Eagle Feather falls, it is because I'm going to get chewed out somewhere along the line. That means that it is symbolic that a warrior has crossed over to the other side. And I'm sorry, but I got to sing a feather pickup song. We even have songs for that. That's never had an eagle feather fall. Now you're learning real Indian stuff.
I'm sorry.
And then you, I'm the one swinging my arm with a feather on it. Just a quick thing, but the right thing. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I deal in livestock, and I might be able to get you a small buffalo either from a calf for yearling. Would you be interested in it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Anybody hear in the news where some group of people died from being in a sweat lodge in Arizona a few years ago?
Yeah.
The news?
Yeah.
That's our ceremony. They were culturally appropriating that, doing it wrong, and they killed people. The reason I'm saying this old bucket here, these antlers, this is from a very well-known established sweat lodge, the real deal. That it's one of our 7 sacred ceremonies. Pardon my French, white people are not supposed to be doing this. It's not something we share. We don't evangelize. You can't join. You're Indian, you're not Indian. We don't force our ways on anyone else. We don't expect them to come in. But here some guy was selling people tickets to come to the sweat lodge for $2,400 each under visqueen. And the fumes from the visqueen killed everybody. That's just ridiculous. Something else that's important. See this little star emblem on here? The emblem to us is called the North Star. It's a symbol of the ghost dance. That is our name for Custer. We called him North Star. Interacting with him was bringing about all of the things of the ghost dance.
What is the ghost dance?
Okay, thank you for asking. It's a spiritual ceremony, nothing more than a dance and a song, where we pray to God for help and to see our loved ones that were killed again. Very same, asking for, in a Christian mode, asking for, now's the time for Jesus to come back now, please. So we can be reunited with all our dead relatives. Our life is so hard, we would rather it happen now than go any further. And they're praying for that. That was what the ghost dance was. What the government thought we were casting an evil witch doctor spell that was going to overthrow the government. I just just laugh at the stupidity. There's a government study, sociological study. The book is this thick, you can buy it. The sociological study of the ghost dance. And somebody gave me a copy of it, I'm reading it, and they went to every single tribe, how this came, at the turn of the century, a Paiute Indian Christian evangelist preacher dude with a Bible in his hand. Last name Jack Wilson, who his Indian name was Wavoka, had a dream about doing this dance and that God would come if he did. So he went around to all the tribes, and he was a really good comedian. On the same level we would think Jeff Foxworthy or the cable guy, and he told jokes when he was telling them about it. He got everybody's attention. He went from tribe to tribe, and they all started doing the ghost dance. And they all had their own little spin on it. So this big, thick book tells of everybody's shirt, everybody's songs, everybody's little twist that they put on it. And even after they did the sociological study, they still tried to exterminate the Indians for doing it, and I can go to prison for wearing this. Now, imagine that. It's like you wearing your a Green Bay Packers shirt and it's against the law. I'm not going to be wearing this around town, but if we have to have an Indian gathering or ceremony and I want to wear it, I don't want to have to go to jail.
I was privileged to attend the California State Indian Museum in Sacramento, and they had the most amazing display of needlework that the women did. Could you kind of explain?
Quill work, you mean? Maybe porcupine quill?
One of them, it was you had to take a magnifying glass to see it. It was beads. They used a lot of shells
Right.
because they were near the ocean.
Actually, the Sioux used a lot of shells too. The Black Hills were once an ocean,
Yes.
so you find shells all
Yeah,
across
yes,
the
yes.
South Dakota. And the women's regalia has either seashells or elk teeth all over the top half of it. That's our their dance dress.
But it was just very minute, just beautiful work.
Look at the size of these.
Don't take it off.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Tiny, and those a little bit longer.
Yeah. Well, this they used, I guess, turtle shells and shrimp or coral or whatever. But it was, and just what they would put on their dress too. You know,
My normal regalia would have tiny seed beads all over it. It's really, really hot. This ain't much further from it. I wear buckskins a lot. I was going to wear that, but I didn't want a cowboy and Indian unit. It just looks like a movie.
Dave, let me, hold up, please. Let us close this.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.